look, let's face it, our animals are important to us. The loss of an animal has been equated to the same loss as a significant other, like your spouse or your child or something like that. So it's already been proven. Those responses are very significant. So it's just totally amazing to build a program. And I think one of the strengths is I am a nurse. My course is, I call it the Introduction for Service Dog Training, but it's really funny because I have very experienced service dog trainers who come and they take the course and they love it. I try to focus, the morning is usually lectures and then the afternoon is all working the dogs. And I really think you benefit the most when you have a dog that you work. And it's a lot of fun. I had my last class that I had, it was really funny. They would tease me because they would ask me a question and I would say, well, it depends. And then
Hi, everybody. So I'm Lianne Shinton from Automation Dogs. Welcome to my podcast. And today we have joining us Leslie Horton. Welcome, Leslie.
thank you.
Hi. And so Leslie's from Most Fine Canine. I love that name.
Thank you.
It's got a ring to it. Like, it's just catchy and fun to say, memorable, Most Fine Canine. Like, once you say it out loud. So how did you come up with that name?
Well, my name originally was One Fine Canine, and I was thinking of the song One Fine Day.
I love that song.
So that's how I got the song came up with the title One Fine Canine. And then I had an infringement on my trademark. And it was easier for me to change my name. So I worked well with the other two businesses, and they had to take care of the expenses and everything to switch it. And so we've been Most Fine Canine for a long, long time, about 20 years.
And that's awful that happened to you. It also happened to me. So we may have to dig into that a little bit because, you know, as you know, my audience is mainly dog training business entrepreneurs, and it sucks. It's an emotional thing when we choose our business and our name and we put all our love into it, and then someone takes our name. And similar thing happened to me. The other business just didn't check and just was like, this is a good name. But we ended up chatting, and I'm like, I'm going to just go ahead and change my name. I don't want to deal with all this. And I didn't like the name that I had. It was kind of limiting. And so I was like, that's okay. And then now I find people give me so many compliments. They find us because of our name, and they always compliment the logo. So how did you find out that someone was using your name?
So when you have a registered United States trademark, you have to routinely check to make sure that no one's infringing. That's part of the criteria for having the trademark. And we found it on a check. So to do the check, it's basically going online and running your business name. Mm-hmm. And we found two businesses that were using my name. One was a small business. One was a bigger business, but it was a grooming business, and it was a new startup. And again, neither business had bothered to check their names or to trademark them. And it is an expensive thing to do, but I find it to be worth it, especially as your company grows or your reputation grows. I never thought that I would, be doing some of the things that I did with the IACP or with my own name and courts and things like that. So as an expert witness. So I think it's good to have your names solid.
Yeah, absolutely. I seem to remember, because I've had a number of businesses, and I seem to remember two businesses ago, someone was using the logo. but I think that we were actually, it was a large franchise, and I think that our lawyer was just checking that for us and caught it, and it's like, so we just contacted them, cease and desist, and they stopped using our logo, the
Yeah,
image.
that usually does it. My logo is actually my first son that got. I went to National Canine to become a trainer, and he went with me, and he ended up being a. I went wanting to be a search and rescue because I was a trauma ICU nurse, and I came back and found out I had my first symptoms of my neurological disability. So that kind of takes search and rescue out if you can't walk. So there's little things that you need to be able to do. So he ended up being a phenomenal therapy dog. He ended up being a wonderful service dog for me. He could pick up anything. He wasn't, thank God, he didn't have to do the full catching like my German Shepherd does for me now, but he was such that he could lean against me to stabilize my leg. He was only 45 pounds. So he is my logo. When he passed, there is an artist who actually drew him with angel's wings in my colors, and he is my logo. I adore him to this day.
Yeah, so that's your logo, your mark. And
Yeah,
if someone's using that, I think when you register your trademark, you register the name and the logo
correct.
separately, but you
Correct.
want to do both.
Yes.
Yeah. So interesting, just to kind of shift gears a little bit. So you went to National Canine with the intention of moving into search and rescue,
Correct.
but then with this diagnosis, you shifted into Magically Perfect because they teach. I think you help teach now at National Canine.
I
Um,
actually I do a service dog course. My company does a service dog training for them. Um,
wow,
Bob
though.
Jervis and was a really big mentor of mine. I miss him to this day.
Yeah.
Chris and I both admired Bob, and was fortunate enough to meet Chris through Bob and doing what we do with training. So he's just, it's nice to go back and to teach. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Bob was a wonderful man. I think he was when I went to school, my class was the first one that he was teaching, as like he was the instructor. So that was pretty wonderful. But I just wanted to tap into like so you went to National Canine with the intention of search and rescue dogs. You love dogs and you wanted to do this cool thing with them. But
Correct. And I came back and I started with I was looking into volunteering with the Fairfax County team, which is pretty elite search and rescue team. And I went to go up the stairs, and I had lost full mobility and feeling in my legs on the steps right out here. And I was extremely fatigued. That's a fatigue that I cannot explain. Those of us who have it know it to each other, but it's unlike any other fatigue that people have. Um, and I pulled myself up those stairs, the rest of the stairs, by my elbows, and fell asleep at the top of the stairs. Knowing what I know as a trauma ICU nurse, that was dumb. I probably should have went down the stairs and slept at the bottom of the stairs. But I just was trying to get myself to where I could get level. And then I underwent 3 years of testing to find out what I had. And it
wow.
took a long time. So at the time, about 15 to 30%, depending on which study you read, of people who have multiple sclerosis don't have the the antibodies in their spinal fluid. So my taps were negative, but my MRIs were positive. But you have to wait till you have a repeat lesion for it to be considered multiple sclerosis at the time. Like I had been diagnosed for a long time now. So, so I shifted gears and I thought that I'm gonna start a therapy dog program. And the reason I shifted is I was in the trauma ICU after, and I was taking care of a patient. And my legs came back, and he was a new quadriplegic. He had jumped out of a boat, and he literally, don't dive, people. If you don't know the depth, don't dive.
No.
And he broke his neck, and I was taking care of him, and obviously it's so depressing, the realization of not being able to move. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if we could bring a dog in and see if we can get him to move better, but also let him know what a service dog could do for him. Like to show a retrieval and do all those kinds of things. So I brought it up to my vice president at the time, and that started the Animal Assisted Care Program on Inova Fairfax campus. And it started in 2 units, and now we're system-wide in all 5 campuses, 9 hospitals total.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's very exciting to be there. Then because I wanted to be able to demonstrate service dog tasks, it was interesting because my dog was able to do those things. I actually had my first service dog that I trained was actually one of our old patients in the trauma ICU. And she was in an accident, and she had one side of her body that was paralyzed. And she and her family had paid a lot of money for a service dog, and it couldn't do the job. So they brought it. They asked me if I would take a look at it, and that was the very first service dog I trained with my business. And then I haven't looked back.
Wow. And I love that National Canine in there at the time. For me anyway, it was a 6-week program. We were introduced to police canine and all these different facets, and it's great that you were open and just that journey for you. You went in with this intention, and
not to get religious by any means, but when God shuts the door, he opens the window, and then you find out that was your path all along anyways. So, I mean, I never thought that I would, become an ADA coordinator and have specialization. I never thought that I would be recognized in the IACP Hall of Fame. I never thought that I would be starting therapy dog committees and service dog committees, and I didn't recognize how far this would go, and it continues to grow. And for that, I'm very blessed. And there's a need out there for us to do the right thing. So that's, to me, what's most important is, are we doing the right thing by people, and do we have understanding? Because if not, what's the point?
Yeah. And even when you were saying, like, if you're not religious, like, it's an amazing impact that you've had. Wow. But I think one of the things I think of is sometimes we have to look at setbacks. There are actually setups. And
Correct.
That must have felt like a really awful time in your life. And you found this amazing setup for you to create such amazing impact on the world using dogs too, which I love that your story, your journey involves dogs like right beside you in this.
Correct. I'm like I said, it's very blessed. And, our program, if you can't see, but I'm in my office and there are awards. So it's just totally amazing to build a program. And I think one of the strengths is I am a nurse, and I continued to work a couple days a week while I was building the program. Now I just run the program. It's too much to try to, well, that's actually not true. I do help other people and other organizations that train service dogs, or organizations that want to know how to be compliant with the service dog laws, I do that too. But so I'm off usually pretty busy, but it's still interesting for me to turn around and look and see where it went and where it's
Yeah.
going.
And
So it's exciting.
it's wonderful too when you think back to that first dog. It was your logo, and the dogs are such an amazing part of our journey. I think before we started the call too, you mentioned you are 24/7 on call. Is that for the nurse
Correct.
side?
No, that's actually because for the program for what I do.
Oh,
So my nursing degree is actually helps me. Like we did this may or may not be interesting to your uh, learners. So if you don't want to hear about hospital stuff, now's a good time to get a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, depending on what time it is. But we did a traumatic brain injury study to show that patients who, from the time that they came in to, we're a level 1 trauma center, and that is my background is trauma. We did a study where we assessed patients from the time that they came into the emergency room until the time that they were discharged from the hospital. And we had to put them in 2 different groups. And because the brain is so delicate, we had to classify the brain injuries, where they were, and try to compare like with like. And we had a group that didn't get a dog and a group that did get a dog. And not to make this very complicated, but the group that didn't get a dog, their scores for overall trauma injury severity were lower. So they should have done better. The group that got the dog, their injuries were severe to profound rather than moderate to severe. So I immediately, seeing that when we were calculating the data, thought, oh no, we messed up. It's interesting, 0 of the patients on the side that didn't get a dog were able to follow multi-step level commands, which shows a higher level of mental functioning. And just real easy, what that means is if I tell you to touch your nose, your shoulder, and your other hand, that is a 3-step command. And I can't tell you what to do in between. I can't say, touch your head. Okay, now touch your elbow. Can't do it that way. So, in order to do that, you have a higher level of functioning, and once you reach that functioning, you can incorporate back into society. 0 of the patients on the side that did not get the dog had an increase in the ability to follow multi-step level commands. Over 2/3 of the patients who got the dog, even though they were sicker, did. And that's the difference between going to a rehabilitation and, like I said, going back into society, or a nursing home or permanent long-term care. So dogs have a vast effect on the healing of people. And there's a lot of therapy dog programs out there that talk about, this is going too long, tell me. But they talk about, oh, we bring our dogs in, they pet them, the patients respond, we love it, but they're not measured. We actually have to have a physician's order. We are actually consulted. The same as occupational therapy has a consult, the same as writing a medication order, same as speech therapy, any of those kinds. We're consulted into the patient's care, and we evaluate the patient, and then we use the dogs to help them heal.
like a part of the treatment.
Correct. And, sometimes it's like a lot of people may not know this, patients are more likely, stroke patients are more likely to brush a dog's coat than they are to brush their own hair. But if you can get him here, you can get him here. My little girl, Pipsqueak, I have a little Chihuahua. She's 1 pound, 14 ounces. She's a natural weight.
Wow.
So she's a 2-pound weight. So you might not be able to get them to lift a 2-pound weight, but they love lifting her up to their chest. So they get movement. So we look at what the patient has wrong with them, and then we determine true animal assisted therapy goals. So the whole picture is called animal assisted interactions. And then there's animal assisted activities. That's just visitation. It's not measured. not recorded. And that is normally what most programs are. And they usually can be run through a volunteer department. And then there is animal assisted therapy, which is about 85% of what we do. And then we also have a program called personal assistance therapy, where we demonstrate to people with disabilities how a dog can help them become independent in their activities of daily living, or to help them become more independent based on what their injuries are or their condition is. And then the last thing we have is own pet visits. So we, in our hospital, we actually have a program devised for patients to see their own animals if they're in the hospital long term or if they are passing away. And the reason I'm on call is to usually bring animals in for somebody who may not be surviving, or in a situation where they just can't, they really need their own dog to try to stay focused. We'll do that. Or if it helps with healing. We've had, we were on a news station and they actually caught the dog. We had a patient with an injury who couldn't move his left side, and they actually caught him petting the dog on command. And they had to run it again, the news story, because people were so in love with it. So the dogs trigger different parts of the brain, and they release neurochemicals, and those neurochemicals also release in the dog. So it's pleasant for both the dog and the patient. So everybody benefits. We also have the dogs walk. The institutions where I work are rather large, so we have transplant, we have heart and lung transplant patients. So our patients will walk, our dogs will walk those patients. Our patients can be on the mechanical hearts for simple terms. They can be on those, or other types of mechanisms that help the heart and lungs, and such as ECMO. And the dogs will work with those patients as well.
Wow. I mean, this just, I've been training dogs for like, I don't know, 33 years. And I just learned how dogs help us in even more ways that I didn't even have any idea about. Like pipsqueak, just a little weight, brushing your own hair, petting the dog. Like, but you guys saw that and you
We
measured
could have
it.
a whole podcast just on therapy dogs and what my dogs have done and what I have seen. I have volunteer teams, and I also have employees with what we call chief comfort officers, but basically they're facility dogs. So they work with them throughout their schedule. And it's amazing. I'm telling you, we could be here for hours just going over those things. We've had dogs that a patient is terminal. They've been unconscious for a week. We bring a dog in, we put it on the bed with them. They wake up, they tell their family how much they love them, and then they pass away 20 minutes later. And it's just amazing what happens. And I always tell everybody I've been a critical care nurse for a long time, and since 1983. So when you're doing the math, that's a long time. And I always thought I was a good nurse because I kept up. I became a trauma nurse certification. I became a critical care nurse certification. I did all these things, and was always proud of how hard I kept trying to take care of my patients and wanting to learn. I suck in comparison next to a dog.
Wow.
We can't touch parts of them that they touch. So there was a study done in Texas where they looked at heart patients, and they had a choice of having family and dog, or just family, or just dog. And their best response were family and dog, of course.
Okay.
Then dog only, then family only. So they'd rather have the dog than their own family. That says a lot.
Wow. And so you're on call right now in case someone is passing and you need to bring their dog in?
Well, I actually take call for both. So if I have a patient that is, if a team calls us and they say, hey, We have this patient in the ICU. She's having a really rough time. Her family wants to know if the dog can come and sit with her. We'll go in and we'll sit with them until their heart stops. Or if they say, hey, you know what, they have their own dog, they want to say goodbye to them, can we get their animal in? We will do that. We also allow own dogs in when somebody's been in the hospital for, look, let's face it, our animals are important to us. The loss of an animal has been equated to the same loss as a significant other, like your spouse or your child or something like that. So it's already been proven. Those responses are very significant. So it is a loss of a family member. So when they're away from them for a long time, we can actually improve their spirit by bringing their own animal in. So we will do that as well. And sometimes it's done emergently, like you have a patient that's going to go AMA, or you have, against medical advice, or they're getting news. It's going to be very traumatic for them, and they need support. So it's nice to have an animal that just goes in there when they're getting that type of news. So we also support the team members. So when there's a tragedy, and people will talk about the episode, but they don't talk about the caregivers, like the firemen who were there, the EMTs that were there, the nursing team in the ED, the medical team in the emergency department, or on the floor. And it's various units. I mean, you can lose a baby, you can lose a mother, you can lose a grandma, and it can be very traumatic because it's a loss. And we will go in and we will support the team. So we sometimes get calls for, we're a level 1 trauma center. Like I said, we're a heart transplant center, organ transplant center. So we can get calls that the team needs some debriefing, and the animals do it better than we do.
Oh, I bet. Now this, I don't know if you've ever heard, I'm sure you've had this question, but I always think of the dog behavior. So if something happened to me and my perfect little flirty was there and I was able to be with her, and I'm passing, she would probably, once I passed, she'd be like, okay, you guys want to take me swimming? When are you going to feed me? I don't feel like she would care that much because she's very independent.
It's interesting because people underestimate their own animals. I do believe that there is an energy. Again, I have no science behind this yet, but I do believe that there is, I do believe that there's an energy transfer. My own black German Shepherd was in training to be a service dog. He could go into the hospital with me. He could see patients. We got a call to see a patient that was not doing well in one of our intensive care units. And we were pretty sure that death was imminent, and the family wanted a visit. And I'm sitting there with a German Shepherd puppy who's a working line. And I'm going to put him on a hospital bed for the very first time for him to lay down. And he shocked me. He got in at the bottom of the bed in the corner, and he positioned himself beside the patient, not on the patient. And this is a puppy, about 6 months old, and then he put his head right there. And he kept the head on the chest until the patient passed. And then he's like, okay, I'm done. So that part was kind of interesting. But, it's funny how the dogs just seem to know in a way that we don't, and have an energy. I tell everyone, I'm not a dog. I don't know if angels are talking to them. I don't know what they're feeling or what they're seeing that we don't feel or see. I don't know it, but I will tell you that it's friggin' amazing. And until you really sit there and watch it, it is, it's indescribable. And when you see it, you never forget it.
Wow. Interesting, because I've never been in that situation. And I'd be curious. And I feel bad if the dog is, of course, going to be depressed about it and carry that weight.
It's kind of interesting. They look at, I shouldn't say this, but, when you talk to people who, because I also worry about the dog's mental health. I've never had to like take a dog and like, when you look at the therapy dog groups, the national therapy dog groups are like, exercise your dog. He might be getting depressed. And, they talked about depression of the dogs when they were at some of the catastrophes that have happened
9/11 and
around
stuff.
the
Yeah.
world. And the bottom line is we really don't know that that's true, if it was just total fatigue.
Mm.
Or the energy that was going on around there just drained them, because I do believe they follow energies. But it seems to me that dogs, like, they're more, it's not just dogs. Animals to me seem more accepting of death than we are. Like, oh, it's time for me to take off my coat and put on a new one. Or we're kind of like, we're, as humans, I think there's a lot of drama around it. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I don't want anybody to think I'm judging it, because I'm not. I just am saying that animals seem to handle it better.
Okay. I like hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, I had it when Chug, my dog, passed. Miles happened to be in the office, and they let him in to see him, and he kissed him on the head. He licked him. He laid down beside him. He died, and then he was like, "Okay, let's go home." It was a completely different. I'm broken.
Yeah.
My husband's broken, and he's like, "I'll see you in a little bit, Chug. I'll see you later." That's how Miles was. So it was very interesting to watch. But he did contact him. Like, he did go over and make sure that he kissed him, and so that was interesting to me. But like I said, I was shattered, and he was next day. Let's go play ball, Mom. I got work to do at the hospital. Let's go. And I'm like, okay.
Well,
So
I like hearing that. And I this is just so amazing. I didn't know we could have our dogs with us if we're passing in like a hospice or something like that.
it depends on the hospital. We are pretty, in a lot of ways, we're more strict because of the types of patients that we have. So we need to make sure that the dogs have had their vaccines. People may not know this, but distemper can be transferred from, not distemper. Gosh, I hate when I do this. Lepto can be transferred from dog to, not distemper. Lepto can be transferred from dog to humans. So when you're in this hospital environment, you have to be aware of what diseases can be transferred. It's called zoonoses, and reverse zoonoses. What diseases can be transferred from human to dog and from dog to human, and then get colonized on the dog fur and then affect other patients. So we're very strict about bathing, diet, exposures. We look at cultures that are pending on patients. We look at lab results. So it's a little bit more than just go in and, like I said, pet the dog. It's are we taking care of our other patients, and are we making sure that when we're working with those patients, that our dogs aren't going to pick something up and then take it to another patient. So we did do a research study about that, and we found that we had a 0% infection rate. And we actually did cultures of the dogs, and we monitored the patients. It was over about a 3-year period. And we actually presented at the Association of Professionals for Infection Control and the Society of Hospital Epidemiologists of America. We presented at their conference. We did a poster presentation, and I remember they're like, "Oh man," the infection prevention was like, "Oh man, we gotta allow dogs in now." So it was kind of interesting, and we had to go over why the policies were so strict and why they have to be that way. And unfortunately or fortunately, there's a lot of animals that are going out there as therapy dogs into different environments, and those things aren't even considered.
Definitely, definitely. I've had a therapy dog I took into, long-term care facilities, and that was not considered. And one word you said is strict, and I'd like to shift a little bit because we've talked about some amazing things that are very more on the emotional side. But I'd like to talk from a dog trainer standpoint and kind of pick your brain on the behavior of the dogs and the maybe some trainers shouldn't be offering service dog training, and
Oh,
why.
so there's a difference between a therapy dog and a service dog,
Sorry,
and what
sorry,
we've been
you're, yeah,
talking about are therapy dogs.
yeah.
But I find that the problems with service dog training, which I also specialize in, the issues that I have with a lot of trainers doing service dog trainings is they have the talent to teach the dog, but they don't
Mm,
have the talent to, and or I don't know that talent's the right word. They have the talent to teach the dog. They don't have the experience to ask the right questions.
hmm.
So I think there's a difference there, and they don't have the knowledge of the disease. And if anybody's taken my course, I apologize because you're hearing this again. They don't have the knowledge of the actual process and what is needed to actually help the person become more independent. And a perfect example of this is POTS. Everybody's like, oh, we have to train the dog to put deep pressure on the person when they pass out. Well, how about if we teach the dog to look at symptoms that the patient has before they pass out, and we keep the patient safe? Then on top of that, most people with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, in case you didn't know what POTS is, their heart rates go up, their blood drains, and they can pass out. And they also have other symptoms that go along with that, but we don't have time to go into all of them. But the problem is they have fatigue. And so we train a service dog, but nobody ever asks them if they want the dog to give them a hike, which is a gentle propel to help them conserve energy, because they usually get really tired around in the afternoon, like late afternoon, early evening. Well, you can actually conserve their energy by the dog helping them walk and helping them change positions, and you can ensure their safety. But people don't do that because the person comes to you and says, I have POTS and this is what I want. And then the trainer trains for that.
Mm.
And any service dog trainer needs to understand that that is a life. And some of these illnesses that we train, or conditions, or whatever words you want to use, that we train service dogs for, you want to be making sure that you're maximizing the independence of that person and improving their quality of life, not just giving them what they want. A really good example of that is those who train for PTSD and they put the dog between the person's legs, or they have the dog stay behind them while they're at an ATM, or they have the dog alert them when people are coming, or they have the dog circle, or they have the dog do a building search. All of those things keep a person with PTSD in the alert phase. It gives a dopamine hit, which as trainers, we all know what that means. It gives that dopamine release that my mind's keyed up. Oh, good. The room's clear when they do a room search. The problem with that is that also keeps them, as the fireman that was going in the burning house, or the police officer that was doing the building search, or the soldier who is clearing the building for his partners. So it doesn't stop the cycle. And we can actually, by training them and alerting them earlier, and by not doing building searches and focusing on the actual heightened state and how to deal with that, we can actually improve patients. And 𝙇𝙤𝙨𝙡𝙀 says it's best, you actually work the dog out of a job. Because, she did a study, her organization did a study, and their veterans had better mental health than the average American after they went through after about 2 years of having their dog. Because curing PTSD or learning to live with PTSD is so much more than those dopamine hits. And how many organizations are out there that are training that? And they don't, they're giving what they want. They're not giving what is best.
And well said. Yes, I like what 𝙇𝙨 said. Training. Say it again so that I can get
You
it right.
train to not need the dog, and that is true for some things, but
Like a
not true
treatment.
for all. Yeah,
like a treatment.
my neurological condition is not going away. So then you have to have the dog adapt as you adapt. You know what I'm saying? But with my dog, I can still do a 5K. I still do canine obstacle courses with him. We do duck diving. He can pick up a credit card key and coin, catch me whenever I need him. He can get light switches. He can get me from sitting to standing, from laying down to sitting. He can do all of those things. But where he's most valuable, in my opinion, for me, is I don't have any decrease in my quality. Well, I have very little decrease in the quality of my life because I have him.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I can't pick something up, he can do it. If I go to fall, which I was running a 5K, maybe some of those people will be on this call because we were at Rehab Rover with Jennifer Carter's course, and I fell twice, but I never hit the ground. He caught me both times. And the one I thought, oh my God, I could have killed him because I was like, I fell so suddenly. I was like preparing to hit the ground and he was there.
He was ahead of you.
So I think that, when you look at that is what it is. My life, I can still work. Look how hard I work. I'm on call all the time. I haven't lost anything in my life because I have him.
So one thing maybe you could speak on is that we're asking the dogs in some of these scenarios not to just do a task. I'm the leader, I'm the trainer, I'm going to help you figure out this task. You're just becoming a handler. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but not even a handler, because the dog becomes the leader. The dog becomes the one that's making the decisions, much like a guide dog, where
Well,
you're reliant on them and you're no longer kind of telling them what to do or helping them. They're helping you.
Well, in actuality, I would argue that point.
Okay.
I would say it's a relationship, and that you have to have a dog there are some service dogs that can do discernment, such as Razzle. There are some that cannot. Guide dogs need to be able to discern.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I have a friend of mine who was blind, and she was getting a cup of coffee, and her service dog stopped walking on the sidewalk and would not let her go. And she was mad because she thought it was a young dog. She had her for about a year. Didn't have her for that long, and the dog would not go. And she was so angry until somebody tapped her on the shoulder and said, there's a hole there where they're doing the construction on the sidewalk. So we need you to go around. So the dog was right and she was wrong. And because they were young in their relationship, they hadn't quite worked those kinds of things out. And, this is one of the things I say about training dogs with e-collars. It's such a big thing to do right now, and I'm not shutting down an e-collar. E-collars go with my clients with quadriplegia because they don't have any other way to talk to their animals. So I'm not knocking the tool. I am knocking that some people train their dogs that if you're on the placemat is the best one, the best example. One paw comes off, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And they stim them when they're on, and they stim them when they're getting off, and they just continue that cycle of the stim. And then what happens is that person falls. You have a mobility dog. That dog then cannot discern. You've taken the discernment away that he can actually step off that placemat. So we have to be careful how we train, mm-hmm. and we have to select the right dog because not all dogs can discern intelligently. Yeah. So you have to pick the right dog, and not all dogs can be service dogs. And again, the mistakes I see in people who are trying to train service dogs is they'll call you. I have people call me and go, I just bought this golden doodle puppy and I want him to be a service dog. Who tested the dog? How proven is he? What criteria does he have behind him that he's healthy? People don't recognize that the service dogs have to walk on concrete surfaces. School, bank, offices, grocery stores, department stores, sidewalks. They're all concrete. So if you don't have the dog x-rayed body-wise, you don't know if they have good hips, good knees, good elbows, good shoulders, nice backs, especially if they're doing mobility. That dog is hurting and they can't work for as long. And nobody's even thought about that. That's why the rate of success for training service dogs, what's the word I'm looking at? The washout rate is so high, because it's not that the dog is always the bad dog. It's that, they might have allergies. They might have bad hips. You can do everything right with breeding and still have something go wrong. But you see people taking dogs out of shelters saying, "Oh, these are going to be great service dogs," and they're like, "Oh, we're a non-for-profit. We're going to save our money. We're going to use these service dogs and it sounds great, but who's checking the dog's health?" And they go, "Well, they're vet examined and they're okay." Well, not necessarily, because you still haven't gotten x-rays to see how they're doing, and you're throwing them on concrete. And I also think young trainers, so that's something to note about selection of dogs, is I think something that new service dog trainers may not have that experience. The other issue is so disease process, and then the body of the dog, but you also have to have the temperament. The dog has to want to work. It has to want to be with you. And sometimes people will get the size of the dog, but they won't think about, like, a Great Pyrenees can give you the size that you might need for somebody who's large, but can they work in Florida? And is it fair to ask them to work in Florida? And there are people that actually do that. So, and they're guardian breeds, so you got to think about that. And when you take, I'm not opposed to shelter dogs at all. I'm just saying do the right testing. And what I have found in my area, and everybody has different, I can find a great dog temperament-wise, but he has a horrible body, or she has a bad conformation, and then I'll have a dog with great conformation that's in the shelter because he or she has a terrible temperament. So I personally, I'm not saying that I won't take a rescue, but I rarely take it, because you may never know their history.
Yeah.
So I prefer to work with breeders, and that's another thing to consider, is what is the health of the dog and what is the tasking of the dog, and are you being fair of what you're asking the dog to do? And then there's confusion, as I've stated to you, between therapy dogs, emotional support dogs, service dogs, and what they really do. And that continues to be an issue. And then you have people who will call you and say, "I need a service dog. I have anxiety. I just really want the dog to fly with me on the airplane." So you have to be able to have the right questions. And again, a lot of inexperienced service dog trainers, they don't know what questions to ask. And I think that comes over time, but I think that's where it's really nice to have a mentor, or to take a course with people who have trained them for a while. And then you also need to make sure that the person's the right person. I need a service dog to get out. Okay. When's the last time you left the house? I don't like to leave my house at all. Well, then why do you need a service dog to leave your house? I just think it'd be nice to have one. Well, you can't put him with a working dog, him or her with a working dog German Shepherd. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be careful what we're asking. Is it realistic? And I personally will not work any person for PTSD or anxiety dogs if they're not currently in therapy.
Makes sense.
And the reason is because they'll tell you that they are. But when you have them track, and I also like to talk to their therapists, and I get um, a confidentiality signature signed. I never meet a healthcare provider without the um, without the client with me, but I will do that because I want to know, what do you see when this person starts to get anxious, or this
Mm.
person starts before they have the seizure? What's the first thing you see? And it might be an eye twitch or something like that. So it's just learning what those questions are, and a lot of people don't research the condition enough to pair them with the right dog, right size, and that people just assume any dog can do it. That was a lot. Is that too
Wow.
much?
It was amazing. I guess the next question is about your course and your teachings.
I'm taking it offline. I do have an online course. I am taking
Mm.
it offline because it's due for an update. I
Okay.
believe in being current, so I am taking it offline for an update. My course is, I call it the Introduction for Service Dog Training, but it's really funny because I have very experienced service dog trainers who come and they take the course and they love it. I try to focus. The morning is usually lectures, and then the afternoon is all working the dogs. And I really think you benefit the most when you have a dog that you work, and it's a lot of fun. I I had my last class that I had. It was really funny. They would tease me because they would ask me a question, and I would say, "Well, it depends," and then I would explain why it depends. And so they just got to the point where I was like, "You guys are going to like this," and they go, "It depends," and I was like, "Yes, it depends." So we go over a lot of those kinds of things. We go over the laws regarding it. We go over the proper selection. We go over proper client selection. We go over tasking, and then we actually do train the dogs in they may not be like, it's a 3 to 5 day course depending on what they want, and it's hard because you can't say in 5 days the dog's a service dog, but you can see we actually have had dogs get light switches. We've actually had dogs, tap the walls so that they can start to do those things. We have dogs that we do free shaping. I show how one dog would the reason I like for the dogs to be there and to actually do the demos is you'll see how one dog will respond one way to a certain method of training, and how another dog will respond to the other method of training. And it's really interesting to see. And then there's like little nuances and that people actually get to see happen when we're working the dogs. So we also go over the different types of conditions. So like if you're doing a mobility dog, these are the things you need to consider. If you're doing a seizure dog, these are the things you consider. If you're doing a diabetic alert dog, these are the things you consider. If you're doing, so we go over, again, you can't teach all of it, but you learn to ask the right questions and to see which type of dog you want to train. So we focus on it, and I tell everyone at the beginning of the class, here's your agenda. It will be different by the time we're done, because if I have people who are most interested in, like if I have a group of people that's interested in PTSD and mobility, I will still go over the other things for those who are also interested in it, but I concentrate on my class. So I have a very experienced class, then we go at their pace. If I have a class that is just learning and they need more, then we go over everything, and it becomes more of an introduction. And sometimes I have a good mix, and it's really funny because they'll work together and they'll show different ways. And I'm always open to somebody saying, try this, and we'll try it. And sometimes I try it knowing it's not going to work, but I want them to see that we're going to try it and why it didn't work. And then we talk about it. So we go over all of those different conditions. We go over places that don't allow dogs, and how that goes, traveling with the dog. We do mock TSAs. So we just have a really a good time learning, and it blows my mind again where I am, because I have a 4.9 satisfaction rate out of 5. And it just never thought I would be that person teaching and having that high of, and that's over the past 3 years of teaching the course.
And
And when I get dinged, I usually get dinged that the course is too short.
yeah, you said it. So is it online only? Like that's
It
the
is
course?
on the online course is actually in some ways it's better in that you get my individual attention, but I am pulling it off. But it's better because we go over videos. You can be anywhere and we talk about, and it's so funny because I fondly remember one person go, "Okay, I worked on this," and I said, "Okay, but watch this with your dog," and she's like, "Oh, I see that. Why didn't I see it when I was working?" And that's what I want. I want that kind of dialogue so that people learn how to really watch each individual dog. I tell everyone I've been training service dogs for 25 years, and I have never trained one service dog exactly the same as I trained the one before. And you just never know what's going to come up to you. And so you have to get creative in your thinking. So that's what my course is. I do hope to have plan on having it down and having it back up by spring.
Okay, okay. And then do you teach at National Canine?
Yes, we pick different dates. I don't have the dates for 2026 yet. We'll find out when those
That's for
are.
students that are enrolled in National Canine, though, right?
No, no,
Oh,
we
so
actually, it's
anyone
open.
can.
Anyone can
Ooh.
come. So
Oh,
yeah, it's and the reason I love that facility because they can stay there. They have their
true.
dogs with them. That they're reasonably priced for big people who are starting out, um, and I know the place, so like I don't feel like I have to try to get. You know what I'm saying? Like when I go other places, I'm like, where's the grocery store? Where's this? Where's that? I can just go and
Yeah.
get settled in and do what I do. And I love traveling to the other places. I probably going back to Montana for a, to teach a course. I've been asked to go back, and I just have to get with her as to when. But I love teaching people who want to learn. It's
Awesome.
just so much fun. And then I always learn something too.
I love that. So, where can folks find out more about you? What's your website? Where can they
My
figure out these classes?
it's mostfinecanine.net. And
Mostfinecanine.net.
yes, and it's most fine canine's all one word because it's internet. So it's mostfinecanine.net. It's not .com. It's .net.
And it's canine spelled out, not
Correct. The
the
whole
letter
thing
K
is
number
spelled out
9.
mostfinecanine at excuse me .net. So
.net. Fantastic.
and
Uh,
anytime people can email me, they can call me, they can hit me up on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for Most Fine Canine. You can message me. One thing I don't do well, if you want to say that, from a financial standpoint, is if someone calls me and asks me a question because they're training a dog, I usually answer it and I'll spend the time with them that they need. And I don't really charge, just like sure, because I think we all have to help each other, and that's how we survive. So I think that we better each other when information needs to be there. Now I can't teach a whole service dog course in an hour, but you get what I'm saying. So
yeah, it's
like
very.
if you have trouble with the retrieval and somebody needs help with the retrieval, that can happen. I actually had a sport person here who was having trouble with retrieval with two of her dogs, and we had it cleared up, and we were laughing because she's like, the most common mistake that most of us trainers make is we ask for too many repetitions and went too much too fast.
Mm.
So when you slow down with the dog and you're clearing your communication, it's amazing how much better that they do. So
Excellent. Yeah, you're very good, kind with your time. You're very generous with your time. I know you're on call 24/7. Um, the one more question. You're
Yeah, you can ask me anything.
you're before we started, you had to shut the door on your bird. Tell me about your bird.
I have there's actually six dogs in the house as well. So
Oh, okay.
um
He was the
habanero
loudest.
is what's
Habanero.
called a yellow-winged canary, which is actually a type
Oh.
of a budgie, and she is fun. She's noisy. She's 2 years old. I am trying to teach her to talk. She has not learned to talk, but she does go. I'll go beep beep beep, and she'll beep beep back to me so that I know where she is and she knows where I am. It's our way of calling each other. And she
Oh.
also, oh Lord, she can imitate the smoke detector alarm
Oh.
very, very well. And I mean, she's even more high pitched than that if that's possible. And then when I got her, I had opened up my car door, and you know how it'll ding if your
Oh
keys in
yeah.
the car. It was doing that, so she can make that sound too. So I
Cute.
haven't even had her for a full year yet, and we're having a lot of fun, and I totally enjoy her. And for people who want to know, I own three dogs. I have a black German Shepherd named Raziel, goes by Razzle. Um, Raziel is the keeper, the archangel that keeps God's secrets. So I call him Razzle. And then I've got a 2 year old long hair dachshund that is unlike anything. I grew up with dachshunds. She is a trip. She's all three of my dogs work in the hospital with me. Then I have a little Chihuahua that's also a trip. She's 5. She's only 1 pound 14 ounces.
That's
She's a strong
Pipsqueak.
little thing. She's not a teacup. I don't believe in teacup anything. She was a runt in the litter, and one of my closest friends, who was the breeder, gave her to me because she kind of picked me. Pipsqueak kind of picked me. Um, and she's been with me ever since, and she's a great little thing. And then I have a 6 month old German Shepherd in with Veterans Moving Forward. His name is Sonny. He's named after Carl McNair, and he is a great, great little dog. He's spunky. He's a working line, great temperament, hitting the snotty stage that German Shepherds go through or any puppy goes through. And he's hitting it early. He's going to be quite big. He's probably going to tower over my German Shepherd.
Oh,
He's about 75 pounds. I think this guy's going to be about 100 pounds, which is what we wanted for uh, a particular veteran that's bigger, so that that dog can maintain the weight and be safe. And then I have Stan, that's a black lab, who's in the house, and he is just finishing up his training. He's been paired, and we're making sure that the placement's right. And then the veteran will be trained and with the dog, and he's already done 2 trainings with him and did very well. So we're excited about that. And then I've got um, I trained the facility dog sitter with my healthcare system, and I have one of them while his mom's visiting her daughter. So I have a golden retriever in the house, and
oh.
he's doing great. So it's busy.
And you mentioned the veterans, and earlier, you've mentioned all these different places that you work with. So maybe if a trainer is listening, but maybe they know a veteran or someone as a resource, could you share any websites or information, or should they just
Oh,
reach out to you if they have?
veterans, there's a lot of it's location. Dog Tags Buddies in Montana is amazing, and 𝙇𝙤𝙨𝙡𝙞𝙚 with disabled veteran does a really nice job. Veterans Moving Forward, of course. I mean, I work with them, so of course I'm going to give them a shout out. They are a good organization. You really there's trying to think. There's a bunch. I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings because I didn't think of them, but there's quite a few trainers that I know, and there are quite a few organizations that I know, and so I would put them out depending on your location. I gave you, west and mid and then east. But I think like if you want to know more, you can always email me or go to my webpage, send me an email, and I can answer how that's going. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think that there's a lot to be learned with some of the ways we're training our, like I said, with our PTSD training and our anxiety training. I think we have to be careful that we're not enabling the behavior, that we're actually moving to make it better.
Yes, I will definitely see you at one of your courses. I'm going to be attending one of those. I think I want to think about the dog I want to have as I age so that I can always have this buddy and maybe he or she can help me. You held your composure while my dum dum was she's my fly catching assistance dog today, apparently, because she was popping around in the background and I'm like, oh my goodness. So
No, it's totally fine. Animals are great, and we
yeah.
have to let them be what they are.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate you so much. And
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation. Take care.
awesome. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And just stay on for a minute here so we can make sure it
Sure.
uploads too.